In this section, we are going to look at one of the most important tools that we are going to use in learning Solidity programming language. This is called as the Remix IDE. So what is this Remix IDE? And in general, what is an IDE in the first place? Whenever you are writing a program, let's say a HTML program or a Python program or a C program, any of this can be written using multiple tools. So you can use a text editor or a notepad as we call it in Windows. We can create a file, we can just write the code and save it as .py or .html or .css anyhow we want it. And this program can be run in the virtual environment as well. As I said before, HTML will be run in a browser and so on. Now, these kind of text editors also can be used to create these programming languages. That's on one side. The basic necessity of creating a program is to write something and use a tool to write that. But there are specialized programs for running these programming languages. That is called as an integrated development environment. In short, IDEs. For example, let's take something like Sublime Text or Visual Studio Code, or for Python we have PyCharm. So these kind of programs, it provides tools necessary to write better programs. It provides you linting, automatic code completion. It also provides you formatting tools. It gives you compilation. It gives you debugging efforts. In fact, Visual Studio Code has the terminal or command prompt within the Visual Studio itself. So these things help you better write the programs, and hence integrated development environments or IDEs are used to create programs more easily. Now, looking at what is this Remix IDE then? This Remix IDE is a special IDE created for Solidity and Viper programming languages, which means it is created for writing smart contracts in the Ethereum blockchain. Remix IDE provides a lot of advantages over writing the same Solidity program in other IDEs like Visual Studio Code or let's say Sublime Text or Atom or any of these. Why is that? We'll look at the advantages of using Remix. The first advantage I see is that you don't need to download any program to install and then start the programming language. It is an online IDE. If you go to remix.ethereum.org, as you can see here, this will provide you all the tools necessary to write the programs in Solidity. Now, within this, we have a lot of advantages. As soon as you open this Remix IDE, you will be greeted with the welcome page, where you can create a new file or open the files or connect to a local host. You can also connect to GitHub and all of these things. You can choose if you want to create a Solidity program or a Viper program here. There are also multiple plugins that are available to make your life more easier, whether you want to connect to a dApp or whether you want to create a one-click dApp application, or you want to do some analysis using security analysis tools like Mythex, etc. These plugins provide more opportunities and features for you to play with your code. Let's look at some of the most important things that are available in Remix IDE to understand how this helps us in understanding Solidity programming language. I would say Solidity programming language, whoever is trying to learn this language, Remix is the first tool that they should start using, because it makes it very easy to write the program, compile the program, deploy the program to a testnet or even to the mainnet, write unit testing code. All of this can be done within this online IDE itself. So when you open this Remix IDE, you can see that on the left hand side we have a lot of tabs. The first one is the File Explorer tab. They have given 3 files for us as sample codes for Solidity, and if you want to create a new file in Solidity program, you can create on this plus icon and you can say, let's say sample.sol. Notice that .sol is the extension given to the Solidity programs. Just like your images have .jpg or png, your HTML files have .html, you have .sol as the extension for Solidity based smart contracts. Once you create this and click on OK, this file will open in this portion where you can start writing the code. And this has a lot of advantages like automatic code completion and it also has coloring of all the important keywords and variables, etc. So when you start typing a variable, let's say you have created something called as name already, and when you start typing NA itself, it will suggest you to use the variable name. So these kind of advantages are given by the Remix IDE. Now there is multiple files that you can create here, including you can connect to GitHub as well, or you can open a folder right from the local storage of your computer into here, and then you can start editing the smart contract in Remix IDE. That option is also given by Remix to you. Now going to the second tab, which is called as the Solidity Compiler. As we saw, Solidity Compiler is the tool which converts your human understandable language to a machine understandable language. Now inside this you can see that the compiler has a lot of versions. So these versions are versions of Solidity programming language itself. Any programming language, when it starts, will always keep adding features and security features so that can be more used, and it can expand in its horizon of usage. And hence the Solidity programming languages started with 0.1.1 and it went on to 2.x and 3.x, 4.x, and currently we are in the 6.11 as the latest version. So you can choose which compiler version you have to use based on the Solidity version you are using, and hence the compiler will understand the code that you have written. The code that is written in 0.6 is not equivalent to the code that is written in 0.5. There might be a lot of changes to the keywords and new types of variables that are there inside the 0.6, which might not be able to understood by the 0.5 compiler. Next, we have to look at the language. Of course, we are going to use Solidity, keep it that way. Then we have something called as the EVM version. What is this EVM version? EVM version is the Ethereum version itself. So Homestead was the first Ethereum version that came out, and then some of the feature additions were added to the Ethereum protocol, and hence we have all of these. The latest version is Istanbul, which came out in December 2019. So we'll leave it to compiler default on which EVM version it is going to select. And then if you look at the compiler configuration, you can see auto compile, enable optimization, hide warnings kind of options. I would strongly suggest you to check this auto compile option, because as you write the program, it will dynamically check if your code is correct and it will give you syntax errors, etc. So this becomes a very important portion for you to find out if you are making any errors while coding the language itself. So that's about our Solidity compiler. Next, getting on to the deploy script. So the third tab is called as deploy and run transactions, which I think is the most important feature in the Remix IDE itself. Reason is that whenever you write a program, let's say you write a HTML program and you write something like h1 hello world and then close the h1 tag. How can you be sure that if that line of code is working properly? You have to immediately run that inside your browser and check if it is working, right? So this step, step by step, when you write the program, you have to check if that particular functionality is working properly in the environment. For HTML files, you will create the file and then you will immediately run it inside the browser, and you will check if it is looking fine as you expected. And then you will continue with the next line of code. But in this blockchain, we need to have a local host kind of a place where we can write the program and immediately test if it is working. Otherwise, you might have to deploy the contract to the mainnet and only then test it. But as you know, deploying the contract requires you to pay a transaction fees. Also, once a contract is deployed into the blockchain, nothing or nobody can change the code that is written already. That becomes a disadvantage when it comes to blockchain, but Remix IDE or your Truffle suite, which you are going to see later during the course, offer a very good solution to tackle this problem. Which means when you write a program in Solidity, you don't need to immediately deploy it into the mainnet. They have a lot of test nets and local simulations of blockchain where you can deploy your smart contract and immediately check if it is working fine as expected. This Remix IDE also provides one such environment. That is called as the JavaScript virtual machine. So if you go look at the options, we have JavaScript virtual machine, injected Web3 provider, etc. Now, injected Web3 and Web3 provider we'll get into later and understand what that provides and what is the usage of these two. But we'll focus more on the JavaScript VM now and look at what is this JavaScript VM. This JavaScript VM is an environment that's a virtual environment running within your browser itself. What do I mean by this environment running inside the browser? It is an actual blockchain simulation running within your browser. So let's say you are writing a contract. Let me quickly write a contract for us. 0.6.0, let's say, and then I'll write a contract and sample, and this, let's say, is a contract, right? I want to immediately check if this is working or not as per what I wanted. So this JavaScript VM provides a local blockchain simulation within the browser for me to deploy and check my contract. So I can just choose this JavaScript VM and the gas limit, as you remember the gas concept, and you can also choose some value that you want to transfer to the smart contract also. As you know, smart contract hold money, right? So you can, if you want to transfer, let's say 1 ether to the smart contract, you can change it to ether and click on 1. This will transfer money from your account to the smart contract. But for now, let us keep it at 0, and the contract will be visible here as well. So this will be red in this place, and you will be able to deploy the contract immediately to the local JavaScript simulation that is given by JavaScript VM as part of your Remix IDE. Now, before you deploy, the contract needs to be compiled successfully, which means it does not have any syntax errors or any logical errors. So this compiler will have a small tick mark nearby to show that the compilation is successful. Only after that you will be able to deploy the contract itself. Now, once I click on deploy, the contract will be deployed into the local blockchain simulation, and all the variables and functions that are there within the contract will be available to me in this scenario. So it will say deployed contracts, and this is the contract that I have deployed. Currently you don't see anything because I have not written any of the variables or functions within the contract. I will get into that and understand how to write those in the later sections. But one of the most important things when it comes to programming is solved by Remix IDE, and we should be thankful to Ethereum for creating this Remix IDE for us to make it easier to learn this smart contract language called as Solidity. Also, you have multiple accounts here. So if you look at this accounts tab within the deployment tab, you can see that there is a list of accounts, at least let's say 15 accounts here with 100 ether each, right? Why do we need these accounts? What are these accounts in the first place? These are dummy accounts created by the JavaScript local virtual machine that's running, and this is used to test your smart contract. Let's say you are writing a smart contract for Amazon. There will be a buyer, there will be a seller, and there will be the smart contract. So to test if everything is working fine, you can say the first account and the second account are buyers. The third account and fourth account are sellers. So you can use these ether to transfer to the smart contract and then hold it and then transfer to the seller based on a condition. All of these things can be tested out. It's not only about providing you with a JavaScript environment, it's also about giving you some accounts so that you can do some transactions, test the transactions, and also use these accounts to do gas transactions, etc. The fees which got debited from the first account for deploying this contract only, you can see as the reduction in the amount. It was 100 ether, and once I deployed, because I paid the gas fees, this has come down to a little amount. And that's the usage of all of these accounts given by Remix also, right? So these are the things when it comes to the deploying and running of the transactions. Next, going to the plugins, as I told you, deploy and run transactions, the compiler, everything is a plugin. So these have been activated automatically for us because we are writing it in Solidity. And there are much more plugins which can be added to this Remix IDE. 3-box spaces, chain lens, control flow if you want, debugger for Solidity, documentation generator is there, Etherscan if you want to connect your smart contract to a blockchain explorer, and flattener, gas profiler. All of these are plugins which can help you to scale your application, test your application, debug your application, and a lot more features. So you can use this to your advantage, whatever is your use case, right? So these are the things provided by our Remix IDE, and in the next section, we'll go much deeper to understand many things before writing our first contract. See you in the next section.